Good afternoon and good evening. I'd like to call our Wednesday, July 20th regular council meeting to order at 7 p.m. And I was just looking to see if our first delegation was here, the dark skies designation, but all I can understand is that I'm in the dark and the skies aren't dark enough, but we might get to that. First item is always the adoption of the agenda. Motion to receive and adopt, Councillor Seegers and Lutz. Any errors or any additions or deletions of the agenda in front of us from staff or from council? I do have one I want to add. It's 10.4, which is council liaisons. And in December, we had done that as a motion, so I think we have to bring that back perhaps as a motion, but it's just a housekeeping. And that's just the rotation of our council neighborhood liaisons. Anything else? Hearing no others, I look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. There are no proclamations this evening, and we were looking for a delegation from Bruce Woodburn from the Dark Skies designation, and there is an item in the agenda which is precursor to a request that the District of Sechelt consider going for dark skies designation through a model lighting bylaw, and it is something which looks relatively straightforward and would be in keeping with the current official community plan and the strategic plan for this council. So I think we'll just refer that to staff so you can be aware of it. Councillor Seegers and Councillor Shanks, all those in favor? And if that delegation comes in, we'll give them a chance to speak to the issue. Next item is the adoption of minutes from previous meetings. The first is the Wednesday afternoon meeting closed, open into closed. Motion to adopt. Councillor Lutz, Shanks, all in favor? That's carried. And our Wednesday, July 6th evening meeting, motion to receive and adopt. Thank you. Councillor Seegers, Councillor Shanks. Any errors or omissions in the minutes of Wednesday, July 6th? Thank you for telling us. Yeah. I was wanting to turn to page 12 of our agenda, which is page 7 of the minutes, under the revised Water Resource Center expansion capacity analysis. I know it's difficult to summarize 15 minutes of conversations into 5 lines, but when I read the one about the Water Resources and Urban Systems report, I thought it was a little too truncated. So the third sentence says the changes made since the preliminary report were the reduction of the current average daily flow. I think that should also mention reduction in future growth assumptions and reduction in the estimated costs for expansion. They in fact changed all 3 of those items. And then the rest of it is fine. Estimated demand for capacity upgrades happening later, that was of course part of it, and the estimated cost being more precise. Motion to adopt those minutes as amended. All those in favor? That's carried. Any business arising? And Councillor Shanks, you had one business arising from that. Yes, from the delegation on Westbrook. I think you wanted to ask when that was.
I was going to do that later.
Yeah,
I can do it
let's do that one now.
Okay. Yes, Your Worship. Sorry. Turn me on, please. Yep. Thank you. Yes, Your Worship. Thanks for bringing that up at this time. The Westbrook development review process is a development on the Clayton Lands property. And I've become increasingly concerned about the length of time that this has taken to be dealt with. Back on May the 4th, there
Closer to the mic, maybe just.
Sorry, back on May 4th, this came to council, and there was some discussion amongst members of council, and then it was to go back to staff for the director of planning. Whoa. This is God here.
Just in case you didn't know you were informed, Andre. Can you fix that?
No,
Connie?
I did give Andre a heads up that I was going to be bringing this forward and asking him for a report, because depending on who you talk to and the fact that it had been progressing quite well up until that time, it would indicate we have sort of an awkward situation. And I would have thought that the three professionals involved in this would have been able to sort out those differences and bring it forward. It now looks as though there could be a fairly substantial delay. So with that, I would turn it over to Adrian. Andre, I'm sorry.
Director of Development Services.
Yes.
Can you keep adjusting the sound? I think it's still a bit echoey.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Westbrook application is a fairly complex one. It includes a fairly major OCP amendment and a rezoning that, from our end, requires due diligence and time to make sure that we get it right. We have been working with the applicant to rework the application in order to incorporate council's, public's, and staff's feedback, including issues such as the park exchange, which is no longer on the table, the setbacks, the noise concerns from the neighborhood, the screening and the visual issues, the interaction and the integration of the park and public space and the neighborhood with this proposal, and to, of course, clarify the community amenity contribution, particularly the affordable housing provision, which is outlined within the official community plan. The review process has been time-consuming for both the applicant as well as our own staff. However, the applicant's approach to providing the necessary information and clarity and support of their own proposal, I can say, has not been conducive to the most productive process and the quickest process. We have now received the majority of the information necessary, though we're still waiting for some of the clarifications from the applicant. Since the application has changed quite substantially, and is at this point it requires to be a brand new bylaw, it would need to follow the process of a brand new bylaw, a brand new OCP amendment and rezoning bylaw, which includes referrals again, and which would include the first reading again. The applicant has been informed of this. The referrals have been sent out, and that's the approach that we are taking. The applicant has been given a fairly detailed schedule as to how we anticipate this proceeding. The applicants have been informed that we are moving ahead with the referrals, and those have been sent out. We're aiming to go to the August 31st Planning and Community Development Committee with the aim of going to council with the first reading for both bylaws on September the 7th, if everything goes smoothly for the applicant, a public hearing in early October, and again, if everything goes smoothly, second and third readings somewhere near the end of October.
Thank you very much for that update. And as long as I've been involved in local government, there's always been differences between the speed of which developers assume work should be done and the pace that due diligence sometimes requires. So, but thanks for keeping us up to date on it as it does proceed, and we'll try and find the right balance.
Do I have a final comment?
Yes,
Okay.
Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, my only concern is that, from what I understood, the issues were substantially completed, and now I'm hearing that isn't the case, and prolonging this will then put it beyond us attending the UBCM and then well into October. And if we ever receive any criticism at all in the municipality, it's how long development proposals take to process. And that's my concern in terms of trying to turn around that image of us doing business. And so that's about all I can say. But I'm not saying that we should give any special treatment because it's the Claytons or anything like that. But this just appears to me to be an inordinate length of time that this is taking to process this particular application. And that's end of story. Thank you.
I'll let the Director of Development Services respond if he wants, but my understanding is that the amendment application for an OCP bylaw change for a land use designation, which we had no such land use at all in the district, came in November 2015. And I heard the outline for the details that it could be completed by November 2016, which doesn't seem too long in planning.
Your Worship, through you, Your Worship, we have been very diligent in meeting with this applicant on a regular basis, multiple times a week. In fact, if anything, I would say that we perhaps are spending a bit too much time on this application, given the fact that we have 30 plus other applications and more coming in. In terms of the time required to process this application, I don't think we've been too long or in any way been taking longer than is appropriate or is common in other jurisdictions.
Thank you, and we'll move on. 8.1 is bylaw for second and third readings, and it's before us on page 14. It was read, had a public hearing, and it's before us now for second reading. It's one page, fairly straightforward. Motion for second reading, Councillor Seegers and Councillor Wright. Any discussion at second reading? And this is for the property on Field Road. All those in favor of second reading? That's carried. And third reading is moved by Councillor Seegers and Councillor Shanks. All in favor of third reading? And that's carried. Thank you. New business this evening. First is a report from the Director of Planning on the Environmental Management and Protection Bylaw. A motion to receive the report. Councillor Seegers, Councillor Lutz, all in favor? And Mr. Isakov, I'll turn it over to you again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep it fairly quick. This is an information report, and it's to notify Council and the community of our environmental management bylaw, which is a bylaw that protects the trees. In the past, the removal of trees that is contrary to the provisions within our existing bylaw 484 has been occurring with trees and tree protection plans that are required not being submitted, and with trees being cut without permits in place. This is particularly concerning in the context of new subdivisions and developments. And from this report is just to inform Council and the community that from this point on, staff are planning to be more proactive when it comes to informing the developers of their responsibilities to protect existing mature trees on their properties. And to just inform Council that enforcement will be commencing immediately to preserve the well-being of the community's natural asset. From the planning perspective, trees, I believe, are one of the most important identity features of this community, and I think it's critical to be preserving them for future generation, and that's why that bylaw is in place. and we're hoping to basically start enforcing that bylaw. We're also hoping to continue to review this bylaw for its effectiveness as we move forward in enforcing it as well.
Thank you very much. Any comments from Council? Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. On this bylaw, I noticed it is in force, applies to properties 1 hectare or larger in size, but doesn't apply to smaller lots. So what happens then when we have a subdivision that comes forward, gets actually subdivided into lots that are sold off to individuals? I don't see anything in here, or maybe we have something, but I don't see anything here that then protects the trees from being cut down at that point. So feedback on that, and I have one other point.
Your Worship, the bylaw and the tree management plan would apply prior to any subdivision or development plan being submitted. And that's part of the concern, is we've seen sort of clear cuts happening prior to the applicants coming in and filing for subdivision or development plans, showing the municipality the development plans. So the bylaw is pretty clear that the applicant is responsible for providing those plans prior to the subdivisions, assuming that their lots are larger than the area that's specified.
I think I'll follow up. The concern is whether there's a gap after subdivision when there are single-family lots. So like, I have a residential lot that has at least 10 trees that would be above this size and need a tree plan, but of course it doesn't apply in that case.
That's correct. So that is definitely a gap. I would also actually go perhaps beyond that to say that it's generally a weak tree protection bylaw. So that is something that we should be looking at, and that is the intent, is to, at least at this point, start enforcing the regulations that we have in place. But certainly I would say that it's a fairly weak tree protection bylaw when it comes to smaller lots.
And Councillor Seegers?
Yes. One other one that I know came up when we had the forest fires was actually requesting that people keep a space around their property clear, so that if there was a forest fire, or we're subject to that here on the coast, that their houses weren't so likely to get burnt. So I don't know how that also then ties in with this. So that's just maybe something else to keep in mind on the back end.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Wright?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I noticed figures 1 and 2 on page 35, the pictures. They taken locally? I won't ask you where.
Well, that's my follow-up. I recognize the top one. I didn't recognize figure 2. So if I drive around, I can find it.
Yeah, I would too. As I went through the bylaw, I noticed that some of the dollar values were rather low. The one I had really noted was a $200, I'm looking for the page here now, surety. Here it is on page 42, item F. The owner shall provide to the district security in the amount of $200 for each tree planted and maintained. It seemed like a small amount of money in this day and age, and I guess maybe since this bylaw was issued in 2009, maybe we need to have a hard look at that and see if those numbers are applicable in this time.
Okay, thank you. I've heard 2 councillors suggesting that they see gaps, that so when it is reviewed, council will be prepared to look at it. And I think it was November 2009, so that's fair warning that it should be enforceable by 2016. Thank you for bringing that forward. Item 10.2, E.S. Clayton and Sons Development Permit Encroachment Agreement. Now, just as a point of process here, this came through as a recommendation from our planning committee last council meeting, and we moved council resolution to accept the planning committee recommendations. So do we actually need again to go through this same issue and support it? And it's just a process issue, because I was surprised on this and the next one, which I thought had already been fully approved. Who would like to speak to that? again, everything is on the Director of Development Services tonight.
Your Worship, staff are aware that it was that the condensed, I guess, minutes of the committee meeting did go to council. However, we thought it would be appropriate for the entire council to receive all the resolutions and for, if council wishes, for staff to explain the application.
Okay, so in this case, I'll look for a motion to adopt recommendations 1 to 4 on page 47. Councillor Seegers, Councillor Shanks, and I'll turn to staff if they'd like to speak briefly to the issue before us so we're sure of what it is. Aaron?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a development permit application from E.S. Clayton and Sons for the building located at the corner of Cowrie and Trail, the Sorcerer Sports Building. Turn it on helps. Okay. And yeah, here's the location. It's currently zone C2, commercial 2. And here are some of the proposed facade improvements. So part of the proposal involves new siding, new roof, a change to the signage on the side of the buildings, as well as some paint and some window work to be done onto the property. It's the application's consistent with the OCP design guidelines for form and character. It uses materials such as stone and wood and keeps a coastal color scheme. Here are more detailed drawings, which are hard to see at this scale, showing the types of materials and whatnot. The main faces of the building facing both Cowrie and Trail are mostly getting renovated with the new wooden veneer and the new stone veneer and the wood accents. While the rear of the building and the side that's facing the other commercial lot are getting painted gray. The brick is getting painted. So, and again, another detail. Another part of this application is the recommendation that council enter into an encroachment agreement to pass liability off for the eaves that go onto the district right away. Currently, there are eaves extending, and those are proposed to continue in the renovation, as well as this corner, which is currently rounded off. They're going to have it squared off here, so it'll be, a slightly more larger encroachment. Staff are recommending that that council do enter into an encroachment agreement, as these eaves do provide the public benefit, providing protection from the elements and so forth to pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Is the corner facade actually the size of a second story? Is there anything behind there? It's just a facade?
It's a parapet, I believe is the term.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, I'm sure those will be 2 and 3 stories high. I'm just curious. If there's no further discussion from council, the motions are in front of us. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And that was relatively quick. And we also have item 10.3, which is a development variance permit for 4470 Sunshine Coast Highway. Again, it's something we looked at in its first and summary form last week. So I'll look for somebody to move recommendations 1 to 3 on page 66. Councillor Wright and Shanks. And before we vote, report from the development planner, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So yeah, this is a development variance permit for the Big Cedars mobile home park located in the Wilson Creek area in the Chapman Creek watershed. Here's the location, accessed off the Sunshine Coast Highway, and it's currently zoned R5, which is for mobile home. Here is a site plan of the proposal. the applicant wishes to move a existing single-family home, which is currently in Gibson's, onto this plot to be used as an owner's residential plot. Here you can see the site plan, the 7.5 meter buffer as per our mobile home park bylaw, the proposed building footprint, and here's the size of the owner's residential plot. What this variance is for is our mobile home park bylaw has a minimum plot size for owner's residential plots, which is greater than the typical plot size for a mobile home park. So this variance is to reduce that minimum plot size from 550 square meters to 324 square meters, which is this area here, to allow for this home to be installed. Here is the existing home to be removed that's on that plot, mobile home. Here's the home that's in Gibson's that's planned to be moved onto the site. Here's just an elevation. It's a fairly simple building. I believe it's 6 meters tall, 6.5. And yeah, the recommendation is that council approve the development variance permit.
Good. Any questions from council? Councillor Wright.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. If we reduce the area of this particular site, will the owner still be able to provide one off-street parking space for his own use, plus the 2 parking spaces for visitors and customers?
Yes.
With the reduced area?
It is shown here on this plan. Of course, the writing is small to read on the projector, but here is the owner's residential parking spots under a carport here, and then here are the 2 spots for visitors.
Thank you. And I have one supplementary question. I read through the bylaw and it was kind of interesting. It's quite a long bylaw. Who enforces this bylaw?
Yeah, either bylaws or it would be enforced usually at the time of building permits, etc.
And do the owners conform to all these rules?
Of all the are you talking about this specific one or all trailer parks?
Well, I looked at all these rules and there was a number of rules in this particular trailer park. Does it conform to all these rules?
I haven't investigated deeply.
That's probably not, it's probably for bylaw to answer,
Yeah.
but it's a question you may want to ask the bylaw people because there's a lot of rules and regulations around the mobile park. Thank you.
And the buffer zones, et cetera, will all be staying exactly the way they are?
Yes, so there will be the 7.5 meter buffer zone as prescribed in the bylaw, and we have received public comment that they would like to make that was the public comment that we received about this was about the buffer zones and making sure those are maintained.
I think they read the bylaw.
Yes.
Which probably hasn't been read since the last mobile home park went in. Any further discussion from council? Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. Thank you for including this this bylaw. I know we asked for it because there is some indication from staff that some of it is outdated, and it's very easy to see there's lots of it that's outdated. $25 building permit or whatever, right? There's lots in there.
The typeface is outdated.
I know. So, I mean, at some point, this will need to probably get added to a list to be revised. And in looking at our new zoning bylaw, I think some of this stuff is being covered off in there. So there's probably a lot of it that can just disappear. So, lengthy list. Thank you.
No further discussion. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Aaron, for your work tonight. Item 10.4, I wanted to add the council liaisons, which we were going to rotate on a 6-month basis. And in December, we had assigned, quote unquote, various councillors to different areas. And when I looked at the list, currently Councillor Seegers is at West Sechelt. If we moved her to Tuwanak and everyone else moved down along, we would have for July 2016 through to 2016. Tewanek Neighborhood Councillor Seegers, Sandy Hook Neighborhood Councillor Noel Mueller, East Porpoise Bay Neighborhood Councillor Lutz, Seashell Village Councillor Shanks, Davis Bay, myself, West Porpoise Bay Councillor Inkster, and West Seashell Councillor Wright. So perhaps a motion to confirm that rotation. Thank you, Councillor Seegers, Councillor Wright. All those in favor? And that's carried, and then in December we can drop them along again. Item 11.1, Councillor reports, and I hope we can hear why all these wonderful Hawaiian lays are on people's necks tonight. Let's start at the left, Councillor Lutz.
I have very little to report this time period. I did attend the annual general meeting on Saturday and the art dedication, and I think they were both very well done. And this evening, the Downtown Business Association had a Hawaiian meal and some games to play, but we had to leave before it was all finished. That's my report.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Shanks.
Yes, Your Worship, I actually have nothing specific to report. I haven't attended any functions other than the SDBA barbecue this evening, but there's a couple of items I wanted to bring to your attention. A few months ago, apparently the Coasters Card Club sent in a letter which unfortunately didn't get into our general correspondence on our regular council meeting. It got into our other correspondence for comment by councillors. No comments were received, but it relates to the card club wanting to have their cabinet back in place up in the lobby upstairs. And to address the situation, I've marked it out with green tape so that everybody would know where it was, and perhaps at the next council meeting that can come back and it can be addressed as to whether or not the council will entertain having that glass and wood cabinet on display again with many of the trophies and ribbons that the card club has won over the years. Aside from that, there's been an issue out in West Seashell that I've asked to address in terms of getting some clarification from our development planner, and that's with respect to a notification that there's to be a lounge facility constructed on Norwest Bay Road, close to McLaughlin Road, I believe it is. And apparently on our website, there was a change in the wording of that proposal. So I'm trying to find out the significance of the change in the wording, and I'm trying to find out on behalf of taxpayers the process under which this particular referral will be addressed in the future.
Thank you for that. I think we've all had questions about the site or facility that's proposed. Is there anything you can briefly say about that tonight, Mr. Isakoff?
Yes, Your Worship. So the Breakers Cidery, there's a few things that are happening there. First, there's an application that they have made to the BC Liquor Control and License Branch, which subsequently sent a referral to the municipality to see if the municipality would endorse the manufacturing lounge. Now they're manufacturing cider, so that's what they're asking is, would council endorse the idea of a lounge that would accommodate 64 persons on the property? So that's a process that's being driven by the BC Liquor Control and License Branch. At the same time, we just received a referral for exactly same application, same property, related to from the Agricultural Land Commission. Now that application is for asking for non-farm use for the 10% of their property to accommodate for the lounge. So the two are tied but are separate because they're coming through two separate processes that have been applied for by the applicant to the province. Now, our typical process is to advertise these two requests and proposals for 2 consecutive weeks, which we have started now with the BC Liquor Control License Branch application. We're going to be doing that with the Agricultural Land Commission application, in hopes that that we would compile all the concerns and comments that we received from the residents, and would be able to bring both of those together to council. We're looking at probably September 7th regular council meeting for discussion, and then resolution in either in favor or in opposition to the proposal. And the third stream that's happening at the same time too is we are also currently reviewing if the this application and the changes will trigger any municipal processes such as rezoning. So that's what we're looking at.
Thank you for that update on process. I think none of us really knew what was.
No,
happening on
and I heard as late as today that some of the wording had changed on our website in terms of manufacturing lounge and some other wordage. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, Your Worship, yes, we had some clarification from the BC Liquor Control License Branch as to the exact wording that needed to be advertised and what exactly the applicant was looking for. So as part of that, the wording was updated both on our website and will be re-advertised for 2 consecutive weeks with new language.
Good. I'm quite aware and supportive of the ancillary uses for agricultural land, so that agriculturalists can actually make a living. So when it comes in September 7th, council would probably be interested in knowing how much cider has been produced on that site in the last year. If it's an agricultural entity that we're trying to support, then that would be one of our first questions. So thank you, but that's just for September 7th. Councillor Wright.
No, thank you, Your Worship. Attended the Regional District Infrastructure Committee and the Community Services Committee meeting and a board meeting, and the District of Seashelt Finance Committee, and the reception and dedication of the art at the Seaside Center, and this evening Downtown Business Association summer barbecue, where it's very pretty, it's pink, and I got a lei tonight. And so the last 2 things I wanted to bring up was I attended the annual general meeting, which was out in the lawn here, and I want to compliment our Director of Finance for the job that he did explaining the finances. There weren't many people there, but having said that, his time in the district has been short, and I thought he did a very good job of explaining that. And lastly, I want to thank council for their indulgence in my absence at the last council meeting. I've recovered. I'm fine. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Seegers, council reports.
Thank you. Regional District, few meetings there, Community Services, board meeting. I remotely attended the Municipal Hall Library Building Committee meeting. I was actually out in Alberta. We had a death in the family. I attended the AGM, and I think I got the best lei of all of them. Yes. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems to have been a much busier week, given that there were very few reports. But since the last council meeting, of course, recycling was suspended in the District of Seashelt, and that seems to have occupied a great deal of our time and attention. There was also the hatchery. Chapman Creek had a catch a salmon day. And I wanted also to mention the annual general meeting that we had last Saturday, and thank staff for their work on the weekends. And everyone I've talked to were very impressed with the professional delivery of our Director of Finance. So thank you for stepping in as the CAO and doing that. It was very well done. Moving on to SCRD board report. First, a motion to receive the report. Councillor Seegers and Wright. Of course, they'd like us to receive it. It was jointly written by the 2 of you. All those before we all those in favor of receipt. And there are a couple of items that if you don't mind, I'd just like some clarification on, because there's actually a lot of stuff here. In the very first paragraph, it talks about the planning committee meeting and the fact that the SCRD does not support logging within the 1,500 hectare area identified in the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan as an area for ecological and recreational protection. And that's always a complex one for District of Sechelt representatives because, of course, we have a community forest license in that area. And I wondered if that complexity was addressed or acknowledged by the rest of the SCRD or not, if for whoever was there.
I'd have to say yes and no. There's a number of components here. One is that the Roberts Creek OCP has the Elphinstone Park, but the Squamish Nation does not support parks. So it's how do we balance all of those needs and informing the provincial government and BC Timber Sales that we here on the coast need a say in this. So that's kind of the flavor it took, and we don't know where it's going to go.
Thanks. I was very impressed with the information coming out of the Corporate Administrative Services in terms of the Strategic Energy Management Plan, and I remember last year when I was sitting on it as well, the real effective savings that are coming through that, and that's highlighted again here. Natural gas use down 50%, electricity use down 8%, with an overall savings in the last 4 years of over 600,000. So hopefully we can get on that bandwagon as well. The one other issue that I had concerns about, just because it's so confusing, and I don't know if you can help us with this or give us any clarity, but it's the issue on infrastructure services. And in your report, the siphon at Chapman Lake water supply proposal, the siphon will only be used if required to maintain water supply capacity at stage 3 levels. And yet in the newspaper in the local today, the director, Noor, chair of the SCRD, his report says the siphon will only be used when we get to stage 4. And I know at one time that was the whole debate. When there's actually a stage 4 drought, there's perhaps enough justification to start to draw down the lake. Whereas at stage 3, there isn't enough community support or justification. So do they actually know when they're going to start drawing it down?
No. That was actually the conversation and the discussion.
Okay.
At this point, it was, let's give them approval to do the preparation that's needed, but then the discussion has to happen about when it would actually come forward and be used.
Okay.
That is not clear, and that was made clear at the meeting that it's not clear.
Okay. I would go back to the minutes of 2015 because when I was chairing the infrastructure committee and we approved moving forward with this, I was absolutely sure that the approval was based on no siphoning prior to stage 4. We had to cross the line into stage 4. And that's why the compromise was sort of able to come together. But minutes
back and look.
They may not show it because, of course, minutes don't always show full discussion. Thank you for allowing us to probe into the SCRD a little bit. We should vote on that because we had a motion to receive it and no vote. All those in favor? That's carried. And moving then to items for information, there's the Sunshine Coast RCMP detachment monthly report. Motion to receive and adopt. Thank you. It's actually just to receive. All those in favor? That's everyone. That was Seegers moving, Wright seconding, all in favor. Any discussion of the RCMP report? Councillor Seegers.
I like the format. One of the things that we've commented on in the last while is we've got these wide swings up and down, but actually the 5-year average helps put that year-over-year increase inside a bigger context, increase or decrease. So that gives us more of a comparison. So I really like this.
That's a good thing to note. Though when you see a 100% increase over 5 years, you know that it's something to think about compared to, we can't explain it away. Any other comments? And then moving on to our council correspondence, motion to receive, Councillor Seegers and Councillor Lutz, all those in favor? That's carried. Any items that people would like to comment on? I would like us to refer the second bit of correspondence on the architectural review process, refer that to staff for consideration. Councillor Seegers, Councillor Wright, all those in favor? Anything else people would like to comment? Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. The next letter with regards to the stop signs at the intersection
Yes.
of Trail Avenue and Anchor Road, refer to staff as well.
All those in favor? That's carried. Where's the planned reconstruction of Trail Road? Does it go that far? Does it stop at Surf Circle? That would be one question. Yeah, sorry. I know there is planned reconstruction. I don't know if it actually includes this section of the hill. Yeah, so it probably includes this. Good. We'll see that when it comes through capital budget. There being no other discussion of council correspondence, I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Seegers, Councillor Lutz, all those in favor? We have adjourned. 7:45. Thank you. And Pam, comment, and then Hemlock. Okay. I'm pretty partial to the Acabinos in front of on Davis Bay Road. It's a short flower festival. The Director of Development Services would like to comment briefly.
Your Worship, yes, the provision for making sure that it's a native tree species is already in the bylaw.
Thank you. And I saw a question at the back. Yes.
Being turned into trails that allow motorized vehicles. I live across the street from the airport trail, literally. I live across the street. I hear from 6:30 in the morning till dark, people going in and out of that gate. And I would like to only say here that if this becomes an issue where those vehicles, motorized vehicles, are going to again be allowed there, I want to know how I can make sure I hear about that, because I don't think it's a good idea. Personally, living across the street from there, there's 50 to 100 people that go in and out of that trail every day. Dogs. There is an old man on a bicycle who wobbles his way along that trail. And as he passes you, he goes, "Are there any dogs ahead?" No, there's no dogs ahead today, sir. If you get dirt bikes on there, I don't care what these people say, they're not respectful of those trails. And when the trails are damp, those dirt bikes eat the trail. I've seen the 6 to inch 8 gouges of dirt bike trails in the damp, and then I push them down with my foot, because otherwise they will stay there for 6 months. So I just want people to know that, if you want a dirt bike, there's lots of places to go. But for those of us that are looking for the serenity that little bit of forest offers us, from Selma Park to the airport, you can take trails down to Davis Bay. If you're brave enough, you can rope hike down to the creek bed and walk all along there. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's somewhere that we on the coast here, we can go and grab that little tiny bit of peace without hearing the dirt bikes. Because they whip through and they destroy all the serenity. If nothing else, they destroy the serenity. Those people are not there to listen to the birds and the squirrels and listen temperature change as you walk through the forest trails and watch the eagles and anything else that you're magically allowed to have up in there. So I hope we keep that part for us and let the people that want to do the group rides just go up somewhere where they're not going to change these trails. Keep them for us. That's all I hope.
Okay, thank you. You've been heard. It's true that in fact the multi-use is being considered and it was built for multi-use, and the primary issue of balance is crossing the creek, not the other trails, but there's actually only that, when that bridge was built, the Trail Society that built it and put it together and got the funding and the grants assumed that it was going to be multi-use. So that's what we're balancing and trying to struggle with. But we hear you tonight very clearly how the residential impacts would be. That's different. I hear that. Anything from Christine? I can only say that we're still in active negotiations. It's very, very close, but we thought we were very close a few days ago. So I can't predict, but as of this evening, I can't tell you when it's going to come back. But could be any time in the next. We're very close. There's almost no disagreements at this point. Anything else, Pam?
I was trying to say, I agree with this lady. There are so many logging roads. Now, I know there's billions of logging roads, all the big ones with like rubber tires, the smoother ones that are not so rubber tires. You can go for miles and you can beat the roads up and you can make as much noise as you want, and you're not going to put some long little diameter tire.
We understand that. We understand that. There's only 2 bridges on Chapman Creek. One's on Highway 101, one's by the airport.
Those guys can go wherever they want.
Well, we don't want them going through the creek. That's the environmental issue. We don't want them going through the creek.
Go up the garbage dump road and go forever, or the other way and go forever.
Thank you. Christine.
Can I just ask how the residents will be alerted when the traffic is restored, or is this to the website, for example?
Our communication when it was going down was through social media, Facebook, Twitter, website, local press, media, radio ads, and I think we'll rely on the same both broadband, i.e. radio, local media like yourself and the local, and on the social media that we use. So I think that try to cover it. Not everyone is on those platforms, I understand that, but we'll try and get it out as quickly as you can, and I'm sure if you see the blue boxes out, you'll realize that you should get yours out too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and it's an early evening.